Hello, my name is Gary Mansfield, and this is the Ministry of Arts podcast, where each week I'll be speaking to a different artist. Now let's begin by bagging these bongos.
Yeah, right. Crazy.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ministry of Arts podcast, which is episode 228. Before I tell you of this week's guest, I'll just mention that next week's episode, which features Junior Tomlin, is the last in the Kensington and Chelsea Art Week and Art Trail series of podcasts, which means the ones that I'd recorded in the spring and early summer, which I'd put on pause because of the Kensington and Chelsea Art Week and Art Trail series, will now start to ease their way back in. And this, episode 228, is one of those. And this is also, well, sort of part of the series. Since I started this podcast back in 2018, the very tight-knit group of 4 L-13 artists were on my radar to be a part of this podcast. And it wasn't until the start of this year that I was able to record with the first of those, being Billy Childish, then Steve Lowe, this episode, which is Jimmy Cauty, and the last in that quartet, Jamie Reid. I was down to go and record with him maybe a month ago, but on the morning we were set to record, he phoned me up and said he wasn't feeling too good that day. But we're in the process of rearranging it. So yes, today I'm taking you to meet Jimmy Cauty. We recorded it in his studio. He did jump into the view of the general public by being one half of KLF. He'd done loads before and has done loads since, which we obviously talk about in this. He mentions his Brit Award and what he done with it. I'm in my studio and it is absolutely hammering down. So if you can hear a strange noise in the background, that's what it is. And I think it was the weekend before we spoke, he had just planted his Gurdy stone, which already was full of myth and mystery. He also spoke of his book release, which in true Jimmy Cauty style was out the back of a van. And to get your own copy, go over to his Instagram profile, which is Tower Block 1 or L-13 Light Industrial Workshop. And if you go to Jimmy's Instagram profile, you will see a link to his shop where he sells the now infamous Riot in a Jam Jar and the Smiley Police Shields, which I was lucky to see both in the making. But anyway, let's get away from this rain and go and speak to Mr. Jimmy Cauty. Just have a chat, really.
Yeah, sure.
I have 7 questions here
Okay.
that I ask each artist.
Okay.
And the first being, how would you explain what you do to someone that doesn't know your work?
Okay. Hang on. Get my brain working. Well, I suppose I would say that I make lots of things all the time. There's very rarely any gaps in me making things. So, some of those things are like visual. Lately, it's been more sound.
Yeah.
But going right back, I'd say I'm just, standard artist making stuff.
Well, going right back, where was home growing up?
Well, I was born in Heswall in the Wirral,
Yeah.
and then my parents moved to the Midlands, and then to Devon. So, mostly in Devon, around Totnes, Dartington, in the 60s and 70s.
Got you. Dartington having a fairly good art school as well, wasn't it, at the time?
Yeah, there was a school there, Foxhole it was called, and I was at the local comprehensive in Totnes, and I had quite a few friends at Foxhole, and I spent a lot of time trying to persuade my parents to send me there, because they could make up their own rules. They didn't actually have proper rules. They all had really long hair and took drugs and had a great time.
Yeah.
The comprehensive was incredibly boring, but my parents didn't have any money, so that didn't happen. But yeah.
But you knocked about them nonetheless.
Yeah, no, it was a good place to hang around.
When I was speaking on here, we had, do you know Pauline Amos?
Who is that?
She's a visual artist. She was at Darlington.
Was she at the art school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just 2 days ago, there's a comedian called David Earl. I don't know if you know him. I was chatting to his wife, and she was at Dartington the same time as her. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, I have no idea what year that was. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of a pointless conversation, really. But it's funny
Yeah.
how in a matter of 3 days, I've spoken to 3 people in and around Dartington.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was quite a big deal, I suppose, when it started, way back. But yeah, I don't really go back these days very often.
Did you always have creativity in the home?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, my dad was sort of like into making things. He did do some kind of painting as well, but he was mostly interested in doing like fake antiques. Making things look like really messed up and old.
Selling them
And selling them. Yeah, and selling them. So, yeah, he hooked up with this guy and they opened like a...
Fake antiques or forgery antiques? There's a bit of a difference.
Yeah, there is a difference. Yeah,
Although it can be a very
yeah, it's a
thin
fine line. So, yeah, I mean, he was always making things. So I guess I was sort of influenced by that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean... Sorry, I'm not being very helpful.
No, that's quite all right. We had a guy on here, and I popped in to see him last week. I do some prison visits and workshops.
Yeah.
And I was down in Lewis, and there's a guy who's been on here called David Henty, and he's an ex-forger. He's now a copyist.
Yeah.
But when I popped in to see him before the talk, we went into his studio, and it was just. Yeah, there was a Canaletto, a Banksy. There was one of these. There was about £4 billion worth of artwork in his front room.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
No, I mean, I think I am sort of influenced by the idea of like copying or faking things. The KLF band wasn't really a real band; it was a kind of made up one.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff we do with the L-13 is sort of, it's not really necessarily real. It might look real, but I don't know. I'm going down a rabbit hole there.
It's just sort of repurposing imagery and ideas and mixing them up and making a collage out of.
Yeah, I guess so.
Out of concepts and visual work. The KLF. I love the idea that the KLF stood for whatever it stood for on whatever day you was asked. I did like that idea.
Yeah.
And was there an idea behind it from the start?
Well, I mean, it started out as the Jams before that, and it kind of morphed into the KLF. I mean, again, they were like a sort of made-up band. Me and Bill were able to sort of step outside that and look at the band as if we were sort of... They were over there and we were sort of almost managing them. So it made it easy to do because you could always go... Okay, well, what would the Jams do, or what would the KLF do in any given situation? So, so
it's like a sort of persona as such.
Yeah, it was like it was basically a made-up band that wasn't real.
Brilliant.
And so it was easy for us to control that. I think when you're in a band and you think it's a real thing, you take it too seriously, then it can get a bit messy, I guess. But well, actually, it did get very messy with us, and I'll take that back.
Times.
Yeah. So I mean, it wasn't real, All the music with all the crowds cheering and stuff. There weren't any real crowds. It was all made up.
Yeah.
Thinking things like the Wicker Man, doing that, burning that Wicker Man in Scotland. That was at my friend's house, Francis, well, his parents' house. Actually, he was at Dartington. And afterwards, his parents, because they were away at the time, when they came back, they were like, what the hell? Because they were like Christians. And they were like, what is all this pagan stuff that's been going on? And like, he got into trouble, we got into trouble. But, it's like I said to Francis to tell to his parents, look, it's not real paganism.
Yeah.
We're just we're just pretending.
Yeah, just
you know.
documenting.
It's just a band making a video. You know, we're not sacrificing people in the Wicker Man or anything.
When did the visual work, the visual art, come in?
I did visual stuff very early on. It was the music thing was just a sort of interlude in that, really. So yeah, I suppose the music and the art have always been parallel, but yeah, I mean, I suppose when I did the Lord of the Rings poster, that's when it really kicked off.
Yeah.
But then it didn't really kick off. Well, it did in terms of sales, but I just found the whole art thing in the 70s really, really boring. You know, it was just me in a room scratching away on a bit of paper.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in a band. It didn't make any sense. So yeah, I sort of pretty much gave it all up and did the music thing. Did that all the way through to the 1992-ish. Yeah. And then I haven't really done any music since then.
And why do you think it goes in waves like that? Is it you had your fix, if you like?
Yeah, well, I always usually say that, I did everything I wanted to do in the music scene.
Perfect.
So, although I have actually started making some music recently, so I obviously haven't finished everything. So,
do you reckon that's a new wave coming back in?
Not really. No, it's just in parallel to the other things I'm doing. So let's see what happens. I don't know.
Does the music come into your visual art? I'm sure the visual art pops into the music and the video.
It's all connected. On my computer, I have all the programs open at the same time. So I'm working on a video, some images, and some music at the moment, and they're all interlinked. So I just go from one to the other. It's pretty seamless actually. It's complicated, and I spend a lot of time looking at my computer screen at the moment.
I saw one of the Dismal Land, one of the big ADP pieces. Yeah, that was quite a breathtaking piece. I mean, I'd seen similar before, but only on a smaller scale.
Yes.
But seeing the big riots like that in large scale was quite a thing.
Yeah, that was very intense making that.
Did you make it on your own?
No, I had some helpers for that. I had about 5 people working in the workshop.
Even so, that's not a lot of people doing a hell of a lot of work, isn't it?
No, not really. But I mean, it took a long time. I think it was 9 months or something to make. And then the one I did, the recent one, the estate one, that took 2 years to make.
I did see on your website just last night when it said, if you're ordering one of these, please allow 2 years for delivery.
Yeah, nobody ordered one.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's really, I became like a really, really good dystopian model village maker. Yeah. But there's no call for it. There's no,
for whatever
reason. Nobody ordered one.
So where did that come in? The idea for those little riots?
I really don't know. It just sort of evolved from something. I can't remember what. Because
it is as though each of your ideas is chain linked to the next.
Yeah,
and the last.
I don't know where that happened, how that happened, but I sort of became the person that does the things that are anti-police. So it wasn't a plan. It just happened. So, I was sort of anti-police for a long time. Yeah. I'm sort of coming out of that phase now. But we did have the police come. We had a policeman-only police person day down when we showed the ADP, and a lot of Met police came down to look at it. But they really liked it. So that was kind of strange.
Well, they're the stars as much as the writers are, aren't they?
Yeah. So
I mean, they've both got their agendas. They just some of them cross over as well, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, the actual piece itself is actually about what happens. Well, my interpretation of it, it's about what happens when there aren't any rioters and the police are taken over entirely. Yeah. So in that model, there's nobody, only the police.
Yeah.
So they're just on their own. You know, they've got a perfect police state, but then they start to misbehave, and they're the ones doing the crimes in the end.
And to this day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had no idea how bad it really was. You know,
Yeah.
I thought it was like a joke, but actually, yeah,
It's
so
just
it's
turned
real.
real living
Yeah.
and breathing,
Yeah, totally.
offending.
Yeah. So some of the recent versions of that are sort of to do with some of the recent stories about the Met and the bad behaviour and everything.
And how long
yeah.
was it ago that you showed this to the police?
Oh, it's quite a while ago.
Oh, it was.
I don't know, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's all in the past now. you
And
know.
did they take it that they was having the finger pointed at them, or that they were the
They-
villains, if you like?
They,
or-
they just.
I suppose they get it
I
all
don't
day,
know.
don't they,
I don't
every
know.
day?
I don't know. There's some blatant anti-police slogans in it, but they didn't seem to notice.
Yeah, I suppose they see
You
those
know.
on a daily,
Yeah.
weekly basis, don't they? I don't think there was anything in there
No.
that was new to them.
I guess I'm moving away from that police thing now.
And where would it be going now, do you think?
Well, we've got a standing stone, me and my friend.
Oh, yeah.
Put that up in Sussex on Friday.
Yeah.
So the reason we do, well, it's kind of complicated, but basically I've been doing this stuff with Jem Finer from the Pogues, and we sort of accidentally made a record, played it to a few people, and then Heavenly were going, oh yeah, we'd like to put this out. So
Yeah.
basically, to cut a very long story short, the Heavenly was saying, look, it's not really much of a story, is it, that two pensioners make a record? Is there anything else that you do as well? I know. So anyway, it was at that point, somehow around that time, Jem's kind of into astronomy, and he was going, oh, have you heard about this green comet that only comes around every 50,000 years? And it had just come about 6 weeks ago. And, the interesting thing being that the last time it was seen was when the cave people were around. So that got us thinking, and then we thought, okay, so to mark the passing of that comet, why don't we stand a stone somewhere, get hold of a big stone, and put it up. So we did a lot of kind of ringing around quarries and stuff, and eventually found this huge bit of like Welsh slate, which was it is 12 feet long and about 4 feet round, really jagged thing. Bought that from a quarry in mid Wales, and then got it delivered down to Sussex. It was funnily enough, not funny, but annoyingly, it was more expensive to deliver it than it was to buy it. But we spent, the record company gave us a £2,500 advance, so we spent that on the stone. Spent more getting it down to where it needed to go. We've done a deal with these really nice farmers, and then to have it on their land. So we did a kind of ceremony a couple of days ago. Got some contractors in to do the actual standing of it, and actually the digging of the hole, because me and Jem tried digging a hole ourselves. Well, we're going to do the whole thing ourselves, but
We've got a good idea.
yeah, but the reality is hopeless. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's in chalk, so the
Wow.
chalk is really
Yeah,
hard.
yeah.
So anyway, we got these contractors in, and they dug
People
the
who
hole.
know what they're doing.
Yeah, although they'd never stood a standing stone before.
Yeah.
And they were kind of worried that they were going to snap it in half because they are quite brittle.
yeah.
So they had a telehandler with and sort of gradually got it up like that and into the hole and packed it all around with aggregate and sand. And let me just show you this.
And is it there for forever, or?
Yeah, it's there forever.
Wow.
Well, we want it to be there for at least 50,000 years.
Brilliant.
So yeah, that was on Friday, and we're actually going back next weekend because we're doing a thing where we're attaching transducers to the bottom of the stone. We're saying that we're going to attempt to encode the music into the stone.
Yeah.
You know, and in 50,000 years, people will be able to decode it, hopefully. So anyway, so that's like an event, and people are going to come. If you put your ear up to it, you can hear the music kind of quietly.
Yeah.
But it's very quiet. You know, stone is so dense.
So it has to be on probably an unwindy day and quite a calm day.
Yeah, well, it's next Saturday. I don't know what the weather's going to be like, but so yeah, I mean, if you listen really hard, you can hear it. It sounds quite stony.
And how long can the music last for? Is it for?
The track is 2.5 minutes long.
But how long can it be pumped into the stone for?
Only as long as we're there with a generator and a sound system pumping it in. Then after we've gone, it'll just be somewhere in the atoms of the stone.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what we're saying. We don't actually know anything. But it'll be an event where people can come and see the stone, listen to the track. It's the launch. It's the record company launch event for the track.
So in a couple of thousand years' time, when they're trying to figure out where this stone come from, like Stonehenge, they're going to go, it comes from a quarry in Wales.
Yeah. They're going to go, this must have been on a 7.5-ton truck, surely.
Yeah.
You know.
How did they get it here? But it would cost more to get it here than buy it.
Yeah. So that's really, that the idea of standing stones is kind of, for us, it's taking the heat off the idea of putting a record out.
Yeah.
Because neither of us are really that enthusiastic about the whole music business thing these days.
It's changed a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we're not really even that interested in it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the music happened by accident. You know, we were just messing about with something. Jim plays the hurdy-gurdy, and he just sent me some hurdy-gurdy parts that were kind of quite chaotic. And said, if you get a minute, just see if you can organise this into something. And so I just chopped it up into little bits and organised it into what turned out to be a pop song, which wasn't the plan. You know, he just wanted something abstract.
And is it just music, or is there vocals going along it?
There's originally there was SpongeBob SquarePants shouting in the background, but then when the record company got involved, we were like, I think it's Warner Brothers owns that, so we got an impersonator in to do SpongeBob. So yeah, I mean,
So you've even faked SpongeBob.
Yeah. For us, it's not that interesting putting a bit of music out.
Yeah.
But the stone thing is much more interesting. So we're wanting to do another one in London, draw a line from the one in Sussex through London and wherever that ends.
Yeah.
Probably do one in Scotland as well, so there'd be 3.
Along that line?
Yeah. I mean, it was to commemorate that comet, and the comet's not coming back for 50,000 years, so we're still going to need a reason to do the next one. You can't just do them randomly. They have to have a reason. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, we're pretty pleased with the way the first one went up.
Yeah.
And the way it looks in the landscape, because it's right on the South Downs. Even though I've never really liked the idea of modern stone circles. I know they did one at Glastonbury, but to me it just seemed fake.
Yeah.
But somehow, because I'm doing it, it's okay.
Of course. Of course.
So, what can I say? That's it, really.
Well, on the thing of burying, you burying and reburying a Brit.
Yeah.
Is that out there, or
no? It's not out there yet. I think it's going out. It's going out. It's going out in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
When's your podcast going out?
In a couple of weeks and a couple of days, then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, it's because that's from a book that's coming out on L-13.
Yeah.
So, I don't know whether I'm allowed to even say.
Okay.
What about the book, but. Yeah, no, everybody knows that I did it. It's just an account of the night that I buried it, and what happened that night, and then how it got dug up, sent back to our radio plugger, and then I had to go back the second time.
Well, are you able to speak about it in detail? And I'll ask Steve if it can go out at a certain date.
I don't know what the publication date is on that. You'll have to ask Steve when he gets back. But I mean, it's that information's all out there.
Yeah.
I've told that story loads of times.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't heard it until Steve mentioned it to me a little while ago.
I mean,
so you buried it in Wiltshire area?
In Stonehenge.
In the middle of it, or
in the
on
middle.
the outside?
No, in the middle of Stonehenge.
And when was that?
It must have been 1993.
Brilliant.
It was 1993. I can't remember the dates. And then it got dug up a few months later.
By accident or by you? Or?
No, I don't know how. Somebody, our radio plugger, Scott Peering, phoned me up. He said, "Good news, your Brit's been found. Not that it was lost."
Yeah.
He didn't know that I'd buried it. You know, it's been handed into the police. Somebody found it in a field near Stonehenge.
Near?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So, you know, I'm like, how the hell did it get to a field?
Yeah.
It must have been dug up by a fox, I figured.
Possibly.
Because it wasn't very deep.
And the fox was obviously not a fan of KLF.
Well, there was a fan of KLF, but when it found out that we had to share the Brit with Simply Red, it just discarded it.
Yeah.
I didn't know this at the time. I know this now, but just under the surface of Stonehenge is concrete.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
the whole thing.
To reinforce it.
Just to stop it falling over.
Yeah.
So it's only about, you know, I can't remember,
a
foot down. So I could only bury it a foot down and put the turf back and everything. So anyway, Scott phoned up, come and pick it up. And then the second time I went with Bill, and we found a spot that was much, much deeper, slightly away from the stones. So, and that was on the night of the Brits that we did it the second time in '93. As far as I know, it's still there. And annoyingly, very annoyingly actually, the British Museum just did a big exhibition about some excavations they'd done recently over the last 10 years at the museum, and they hadn't found it.
Brilliant.
It's not brilliant, because it would have been so good if it was in that
you
exhibition.
okay.
Yeah. Here's something we found at Stonehenge.
Yeah.
You know, it's a modern relic of a rite or something that's happened there. But I was really disappointed when the show opened and there was no Brit Award. So we'll have to wait for the next.
Do you reckon they would have included or excluded it?
Well, I'd like to think they would have included it.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you not?
Yeah.
I mean, where does history stop or begin?
Yeah.
You know, it was in the past.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those disappointing things. That
I mean, I didn't know the story, but when Steve was telling me, I was chuckling a lot. And is that what the book's...
No, that book is basically just about that night.
Oh, okay.
It describes in detail the doing of it and the leading up to it. What was it that would make me think that was a good idea in the first place? So I won't bore you with the details.
No,
you have to read
quite
the
right.
book.
And is...
But the book, you can read the whole thing in 15 minutes.
Got ya.
There's hardly any words in it. It's all pictures.
It's anti-book.
You know, I'm more visual than
Yeah.
that.
When I spoke to Steve a couple of months ago, he mentioned about you doing a book release from the back of a van.
Yeah, he wants to do it in Stonehenge.
Oh man,
car park.
that really touched my funny bone. I was giggling like a little schoolboy when he told me. Just the thought of this book launch with obviously yourself, what you're talking about, in one of the most historic scenes in the world, and it's just out the back of a van, Del Boy styling.
I think there'd be lots of people doing things like that day. It's on the solstice, you know. But I don't know. We haven't really figured out how to do that yet. I mean, I know there's a track that runs just sort of to the west of the Stones that goes right up to the army camp, and that's like a public right of way, so you can park quite near the Stones actually. I think if we tried to do it in the actual visitor centre car park, their security might have an issue with it, especially on the solstice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's just a little low-key thing,
Yeah.
you know. We did try and show the ADP at Stonehenge, but couldn't get it anywhere near because of the size of it, because it's 40 foot long.
Yeah.
And then so we showed it in a lay-by about 10 miles away, which is next to the field where the Battle of the Beanfields was.
Yeah.
And it was just a little lay-by there with a sort of abandoned cafe. And yeah, it was there for about a week.
That's been touring, am I correct, to various riot sites.
Yeah, riot sites around the world.
Brilliant.
But the tour is sort of finished now, and the estate tour. I mean, there was Steve's probably told you this, but there was a moment about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I thought, hang on, you know, there's something wrong with the business plan here, which is the plan that I have with the L-13, because, you know, the ADP, the estate costs about 200 grand to make. The other one, ADP, cost about 100 grand to make. So that's like 300 grand that has to be paid back.
Yeah.
So the last few years I've spent manufacturing endless merch, right in a jam jar, posters, to pay off this massive debt. So I'm saying to Steve, look, this is a terrible business plan. I get no money for all this massive work.
Yeah.
Not only do I build these models in the first place, but then I spend years paying off the materials costs. What has gone wrong? Why has that happened like that? And Steve didn't really know, you know. We just said, right, let's just stop now. And if I say to you, Steve, I'm going to make something expensive, you just say, he's got to say no, don't do it. You know.
It's got to be your parent.
Yeah, he's just got to say no. So now I'm not ever going to make anything that costs loads of money because I can't afford it.
Yeah.
You know.
And is it going to get sold, or
No, I don't think
is
so.
it just going to be transient?
It's well, they're up in Great Yarmouth at the moment, going rusty, sort of on the coast. So they'll stop working eventually.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, the maintenance on those things is vast. You know, on the estate, which is basically a mobile theatre, I've had to replace all the spotlight. It's got moving spotlights. Yeah. Everything's had to be replaced. Mostly because there's a lot of smoke in there.
Yeah.
And turns out that even smoke machines aren't smoke proof. You know, who'd have thought that? I mean, it's so bad. So, you know, and they cost like, I don't know, $1,000 a time.
Yeah.
So I think we've had like 4 different smoke machines in there.
Yeah.
And now we found one that's waterproof. So at least it's smoke proof as well. But yeah, I mean, all the maintenance on all the gear is just like endless and really expensive. So no, it's.
But it was a really good idea at the start.
Well, I mean, Steve had a really good philosophy. He just goes, look, don't even think about the money. Just do it if you want to do it.
It's not a bad. Well, it's as bad as it's good.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great because I mean, you know, L-13 have been really supportive like that.
Yeah.
And because there's money coming in from Billy's stuff, there was a bit of I wouldn't call it a slush fund, but,
No, but I
there
know what you
was
mean,
some money.
It all goes in a pot, and
Yeah,
the pot's
yeah.
for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, so the pot is for everyone, but then it does have to be paid back.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lesson to be learnt for me to like just try and do stuff where I can just make a little bit of money, you know, because obviously everything's getting more expensive now.
Yeah.
So,
how did you come by working with or being a part of L-13?
somebody just introduced me to them. They were having a show. Well, somebody else was having a show in their space, actually. They were helping with it. And yeah, I just met Steve and just harassed him until he said I could have a show.
He's a good person to gel with.
Yeah,
He's
he
an
is,
easy person to gel with.
Yeah. And because I used to think that doing exhibitions was a good thing to do.
Yeah.
A long time ago. I mean, I don't do them anymore, but Yeah, that's been a really good working relationship, you know.
And what is it you don't like about exhibiting?
I just find art exhibitions boring, you know. I'm just not that interested in art. I mean, even though I make it myself, I'm not really interested in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just get my head down and make the stuff, but I don't go to loads of exhibitions, and I'm not really a fan of like other people's stuff so much. So it's a bit weird to say that, I know, but I was more of a music fan when I was making music than I am an art fan when I'm making art. You know, I used to go to lots of gigs and have lots of music. We haven't got any art anywhere in the house. We don't. I mean, we do go to exhibitions because we live right next door to the tape, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I'm just really more interested in going to the cafe and just walking around the space than being impressed by the work or being affected by the work. But I suppose you say that, I must be a Philistine. I'm just not that bothered.
The stamps, I'm going to ask you if you can just sort of just cover the idea behind the stamps. And I know it was mentioned on Steve's episode, and if you know, for those that may not have listened to his, would you be able to conclude that part with the presentation that you had to give to the GPO or the post office rather?
Yeah, well,
image.
I mean, looking back on that whole situation, you know, our lawyers were going to defend our case, and then one day, the lawyer rang up. He said, "Look, this really all hinges on, did you scan an original stamp to get the original idea, to get the thing going? Because I've been saying none of it's real. You can't even see a face. There's a gas mask over it." And I said, yeah, I did scan a stamp. He said, well, that's the end of it then. The case is over.
Yeah.
You've told me that now. I can't deny that.
Yeah.
You know, we basically caved in and lost the case, and I had to pay their expenses and everything. But anyway, it's good to have stuff banned.
Yeah.
You know, it helps massively.
Because I like that Steve mentioned that you'd gone and found another image that was very like the coin,
but then, you know, if you're sort of trying to pretend something is a real thing, you can still get into trouble, even if it isn't the real thing. Passing off, there's loads of things in this country that you're not allowed to do. But interestingly, well, it might not be interesting, but I had to use this Dick Van Dyke sample on something that I was doing, and I used Fader, which is an AI program, to extract his voice from the music from a Mary Poppins film. And then I used just his voice on a remix of this track that I've done. And then the publishers are going, well, we can't, it doesn't belong to you, that belongs to Warner Brothers or whoever it is. And I was like, well, actually, it's not Dick Van Dyke, it's an AI version of Dick Van Dyke. And, you know, there hasn't been any test cases or anything, so nobody knows what the situation is.
And are you happy to be the test case?
Not really. No.
I thought that'd be the answer.
Yeah, no, it's like, but they were going, oh, well, I don't know. The publishers were going, well, we don't know about this. We're going to have to find out, and they haven't got back to us. So I think there's lots of people in the music business and in every business asking their lawyers, what's the situation with copyright?
Yeah, because law is only law if it's happened before and been documented.
Yeah, totally, and nothing's happened
yet. And if it hasn't,
no. So, you know, the thing that's going to be interesting is if there's a version of something that is an AI copy of something, who's to say which is the authentic or original version? You know, so I'm thinking that if you're making things, you're going to have to blockchain it, whatever it is, to prove that you were the original maker of it. Yeah. Because there's going to be like thousands of copies of it, or things that are like it, that are owned by whoever developed the AI, I guess, or who nobody knows who owns it.
Yeah.
So it's all a bit weird at the moment.
Well, it's exactly like you're saying there. It's just duping or trying to dupe the listener, viewer, into thinking that what they're looking at is the original.
Yeah.
And it isn't.
Yeah.
But if they're under the impression it is, that's the grey
And
area, isn't it?
It's pretty difficult at the moment. And I didn't really want to do blockchain because I don't like the NFT thing, but but not to make money, but as a way of proving that, you know, maybe with all your music, you have to put it on the blockchain instead of copyright.
Yeah.
You know, it's like because copyright looks like it's over, sort of, which is a good thing in some ways, but it's a bad thing if you live off royalties.
Of course.
So you know, you got to figure out a new way of doing it. I think. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's kind of weird at the moment. This kind of transition period from old style copyright, the idea of it, into a new blockchain version of it. But then when they crack the blockchain, the hackers, then that's out the window. So there'll have to be some other thing.
So who would own it, do you think? Would it be the AI company?
Well, the Dick Van Dyke sample, that
who
example.
Just created it?
I've no idea. I don't know. I mean, because I asked the program to do it.
Yeah.
I sort of instructed it to take that vocal out. Even though it hasn't recreated it, there are lots of AI programs that will recreate it from scratch. And no, I mean, do I own it? I don't know. Or does the company who made the AI or the platform that I used, you know, the internet platform that had the software on it? I don't know. It is annoying when somebody does copy you, but actually I understand why you would want to copy something. I mean, the whole idea of get an idea, just imagine ideas are just kind of like floating around and you just grab one and you just say, right, now that belongs to me. But really, you know, well, I suppose, you know, they're just for everybody in a way, ideas. And you can sort of, you get an idea and you can use some of it, but you should pass it on and allow it, whatever you've done, to be out there so other people can get ideas from it.
Once money comes into the equation.
Well, then money and copyright comes into it, and then blockchain. So it's tricky to get the balance right, you know. You know, I mean, interestingly, with the music thing, whoever invented the music business originally, it's incredible what they did. You know, there's a song, and it's divided up into all these different things. You've got the masters, which is the actual physical recording. Then you've got the publishing, and then you've got all these different segments of the cake that somebody has invented.
To give everyone a little slice.
Yeah, and there's this whole thing called neighbouring rights, which is about a third of that cake that nobody even knew about until quite recently.
Yeah.
Me and Bill didn't know about it. And, you know, so every time a song's played on the radio or downloaded, a percentage of it goes to neighbouring rights, and all these other percentages of things go out. And it's incredible that anybody could invent that and get away with it for so long, you know.
But am I correct in thinking that all of that pie is only relevant for 50 years?
It's different. It's different in America. 70 years after you're dead, the actual, I think it's the publishing goes into the public domain, but the masters, which is the physical recording of it, that's always owned by the owner forever. Yeah. So no, it's just the publishing. Then it becomes a folk song, sort of. Yeah. After 70 years, that's why the Beatles are freaking out, because, you know, all their stuff is going to become folk music. That's all I had in mind. Yeah, it's gonna happen to all musicians at some point. They're going to lose a big chunk of their income.
Well, it's like at the moment there's so many artists using the license-free images from the 30s and 40s that was in comic books, and now the license is up. They're being used for.
But I mean, you know, that pie that the music business has, there's nothing like that in the visual world. No. You know, if you draw a picture of something, there isn't like a cake with all the different things divided up. rights that you're entitled to.
Yeah.
It's just one thing, just one copyright.
Well, famously, I mean, I was just talking about David Henty's blue plaque, Gavin Turk's blue plaque, when he sold it to Saatchi. Saatchi had another few made up
Yeah,
because he'd bought the original.
yeah,
Therefore, the copyright was thrown in the air.
right.
He was saying it was his. Gavin was saying, well, it's obviously still mine. But there was nothing anywhere to say whose it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I sold that Lord of the Rings poster, I didn't sell it. I kept the copyright and I kept the original, but I just licensed it to a publishing company.
Yeah.
So that's the usual thing to do. So you always retain the copyright of your visual work,
Yeah.
unless you actually sell it. But I think a lot of artists, well, musical artists, are selling their copyrights now, cashing in at the last minute.
Yeah.
People like Dylan and stuff.
Oh, he done it recently, didn't
Yeah, yeah. You can sell the copyrights and the masters to like one huge company,
he? Yeah.
and they give you, I don't know, 50 million quid, but then you have no rights or no
Yeah.
royalties or anything.
You've
sold
cash
it.
cow, yeah.
Yeah. But then I was reading this thing that though all those catalogues are massively overpriced, and that I reckon the artists will be able to buy them back for a fraction of what
Yeah,
they sold them
brilliant.
for. So, yeah,
Like an NFT.
just
A
like it's
little
all
while ago,
going to go
yeah.
wrong for those companies that have bought the catalogues, because that you can't, the streaming thing and everything. Yeah, you don't really make that much money.
Yeah.
I think they've overpriced the whole thing. Anyway, I don't know what Bob Dylan's POS statements are like.
I reckon they're doing all right.
Yeah.
Which piece that you've created has got the strongest emotional connection?
Emotional. I don't have any emotions.
None
I'm a bloke.
whatsoever.
What are you talking about?
Well, there's loads of emotion on this table.
Yeah,
we've
no,
seen that,
I don't have emotional.
Is there any
What does that even
artworks-
mean?
It's quite open-ended, but it could mean anything. Is there any that you've created that ended up having more power about them than you thought would do once it went out in the world? I mean, I'm looking at
yeah.
these riot shields at the moment.
Yeah.
That's quite a simple idea, but when you look at what it is, and I think that is an immensely powerful object for what it is, what it represents,
it's a very
and what
popular.
you've turned it into.
It's a very popular thing, I must say. Yeah. I don't know. I've forgotten what the question is.
Which piece that you've created has got the strongest emotional connection?
No, I'm still not getting that. But I mean, that riot shield has been a massive thing, obviously.
Yeah, it's one of my favourites.
Because it was created entirely by accident.
Yeah.
Because one of our daughters was at the Occupy St. Paul's protest. She'd been living there, and she said, "Oh, the police are going to evict us at the weekend." And I had some riot shields knocking around, and she said, "Can we have a couple of riot shields?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll bring some down." But I thought, I'll just paint something on them before I leave, just to make,
Yeah.
so they don't look like police ones. And just quickly painted a smiley face without even thinking about it. Took it down there, and we were like, "Wow, these look really amazing."
Give it personality.
Yeah. Well, it just suddenly it's like, "Oh my God, that."
Yeah.
And then when the night of the eviction, it was like, she phoned up and said, "They're here, the police are here." And I'm like, right, this is going to be amazing. Get a photographer and a film crew. Let's go
Nice.
down there, because we're going to get shots of these kids on the barricades with
Just
smiley
having-
riot
yeah.
shields.
How many were there?
2.
Okay.
Right, so we go charging down there at about midnight or something. The whole place is surrounded by cops. They're not letting us in, but then we sneak in. And there's a barricade, St. Paul's in the background, police everywhere. They're on the barricade, no riot shields. We're like, "Where's the riot shields?" They were like, "Oh no, we left them in the tent." I'm like, "What?" No, because that shot would have been
Yeah.
everywhere,
Yeah.
press-wise. And obviously there's always part of me that's like thinking of what the press shot would be for anything, and that would have been priceless. So yeah, ever since I've never really recovered from that disappointment.
Is she aware of that?
Yeah, yeah.
On a daily basis.
Totally, because that was a terrible missed opportunity.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, so yeah, I'm still making them, still churning them out.
Brilliant.
My
Love
workshop's downstairs and it's full of them.
Well, that's what they say, that if you're about to be attacked, even kidnapped, is make your personality known and smile.
Yeah.
Because it can make some people not want to do any harm because of that smile, because of that personality. And where you put personality on a shield.
I always say that if there's going to be a massive riot, then I've let loads of people know around London, look, just give me a ring and I can supply you with at least 100 shields at a very short notice.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing's really, the right thing hasn't come up.
No.
Obviously it's got to be something that I'm into.
Yeah.
But and those black bloc people who love to fight the police, you don't seem to see them around so much.
No.
Maybe I should take them to Paris. Because at least they put them to good use there.
Yeah,
The French are much better at it.
They know how to have a riot, don't they?
Yeah.
They're good at it.
Yeah.
You've already mentioned your dislike or unwant for exhibitions.
Yeah.
One of the questions I do have here, if there was you and 5 other artists, past and present, what would your ideal group show be?
I wouldn't want to do a group show with other artists. Honestly, I'm not just saying that just for the effect. I'm bound to say all the L-13 artists.
Of course, which is what Steve said.
Yeah. But anything further afield than the L-13, then I'm just not really, I don't pay attention to it. I don't follow it.
Yeah.
I had a meeting with some arty people a few years ago in a pub, and we were talking about they were maybe going to sell some of the riot shields, and these 2 guys, I was listening to them talking, and they were talking about going all the shows they'd been to over the years, the art shows, and I hadn't been to any, and I didn't know any of the artists they were talking about, and it reminded me of 2 people talking about the gigs they'd been to, and I would have been able to join in.
Yeah.
Go, oh yeah, I went to like that gig, or saw Joy Division or whatever. So that was that point I realised how much I'm not interested in that world.
But then you're saying that, Billy said that, Steve obviously said that as well. All of you appear to have that same, would it be, I don't think it's selfish, but not wanting to be a part of the bigger thing, quite comfy in a small space.
I don't know. I don't really understand how it works, the art world. The music business is very easy to understand. You make a record, if the public like it, it's a hit. Or, if you're making pop records, there's other aspects of the music that isn't pop, but that was a very easy transaction to get your head round. The art world isn't like that, so it's not like if all the people like your work, you've had a hit piece of work. So all the people love the riot shields. They're a hit, but it's not a hit in the art world in the same way. So, because everything has to be curated by a small group of people who might not be interested in riot shields. So, but then again, if I was inventing the art world from scratch, I'd probably end up doing the same thing. I don't know a better way of doing it. What is a better way of doing it? I don't know. Yeah. I think for me it's just best just to ignore the whole thing.
Yeah, because it developed 2 art worlds. Like you're saying, the shields will sell and sell and sell.
Yeah,
as the stamps.
Yeah.
They will just constantly sell.
But it's all quite low level selling. It's not like they're going for like thousands.
Yeah.
To collectors and stuff. They're just going to ordinary people who like it.
Yeah.
And
but it will still end up on a wall by people that love it.
Yeah.
It's just it'd be looked at from slightly different eyes. There's a story that I liked about Sarah Lucas. She was years and years ago, before fame hit, she done a group show in a squat or in a house, she took the artwork there on the roof of the car, put the artwork in the house. Saatchi came and bought it, and then art handlers turned up with the overalls and white gloves because its value was going into the house and coming out of it. The value was extraordinary,
I'm like you. I mean, it would be great if I could sell work for loads of money, because then I wouldn't have to worry about not having any money. And it would be
back to 300
grand.
It
would be very, very, very useful, and it would be great. But so it's not happening. It's not going to happen. I don't want that to really get in the way of anything. So, it's, like I said, I just ignore it and get on with other things. I've made plenty of money from other things, like the music business in the old days. So, I mean, not that there's any of that left now, but I know what it's like to make a lot of money from something, and it's totally brilliant. So I'll just keep churning it out and see what happens.
See in what direction it goes. And if you wasn't an artist, what do you think you'd like to be?
I think I was saying to somebody yesterday that I would have liked to have been a jazz drummer.
Okay.
But I've never done that. What else?
That'd do absolutely
I'm too
fine.
old to think about it now.
And the final two, have you got anything coming up?
No, nothing. I've got nothing on the drawing board at the moment.
And where can people find what you do, be it online or social media?
It's a mess. It's a fucking mess. I don't even know. I mean, I've got a website, but I haven't literally put anything on it for months.
Yeah.
It's so out of date that it's just embarrassing.
Which is jamescauty.com.
Yeah, but I wouldn't send anybody there. No, because it's
Considering throughout your career you've been a master of self-publicity. Yeah, this is the flip side to it.
Yeah, I mean...
or L-13.
I mean, I've got an Instagram account, it's got all the current things that I'm doing.
Okay.
And that's called Tower Block 1. So I think I just send people there, because that's the thing that I post stuff every day on, or every week. And that's got all the stuff about the Standing Stone and the music and the riot shields and everything that I do.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I'd tell people to ignore the website. I'm probably going to just close that down, because it costs loads of money to keep them going. Do people even go to websites unless they're trying to buy a spare part for their car?
Instagram has sort of taken over that for me.
Yeah.
But there was a while ago when Instagram looked a bit rocky, and if someone bought it, like Elon Musk has just bought Twitter, I wouldn't want to be a part of it. Yeah. Possibly. And then where do you go?
Yeah.
You've no longer got this little...
Yeah, I suppose you're more independent if you've got your own website.
Yeah. Well, that, I think, is all my questions are. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to see what I'm doing?
I'd love to.
This is actually my wife's layer. Mine's downstairs.
I've seen those chairs before.
Yeah.
I was quite pleasant when I come in and saw one. Oh, man.
Yeah, so this is right shit century.
Fucking hell.
I'll show you what I'm not doing.
See, white shoes will be there forever, won't they? That's the jam jars.
Yeah,
Beautiful idea.
The other day.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Ministry of Arts podcast. It's a podcast that's produced with the help of the listener. And if you like what you've heard and you think you might be able to give a little support, there's two ways in which you can do it. If you go over to the Ministry of Arts Instagram profile, you'll find a Linktree drop-down box. And in that box, you'll find two links. One is called Buy Us a Coffee, and it's pretty much that. You can make a one-off payment, the price of a cup of coffee. Or, if you're able and want to do it more long term, you can become a Ministry of Arts Patreon, where you can sign up to support us on a monthly basis, and 100% of your support goes back into the podcast. And if you're not able to do that, that's absolutely fine. This content is free for everyone. But we would urge you to follow us on your socials and show us a bit of love that way. Either way, thanks for listening and see you next time. Ta-da.